Radio.
Are you ready for this? Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's Wednesday, February the 12th, 2014, and welcome to the BCS Experience, History, Arts, Culture, and Politics in Review and Discussion. I'm Byron C. Saunders, your host with the most. The BCS Experience takes a look at our rich history, African American history. We're going to share with you some known and unknown historical facts and information from the past and connect the dots on how they have impacted on our present day events and how they will definitely shape our future as African Americans in this country and around the world. The BCS Experience, History, Arts, Culture, Politics in Review and Discussion. This is Internet Radio and will be aired live every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. from the studios of the BW Moving Images on the GoPro Radio Network. You see, I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to you all across the country and around the globe. I want you to tune in every week on your computer or your radio or phone. I want you to become a loyal listener, and I personally invite you to lend your voice to this radio talk show to express your opinions on my weekly topics. Now, this is social network radio at its finest. Here's the number for you to call in to be a part of the discussion. Call 347-884-9839. Once again, that number to call is 347-884-9839. This week's topic, oh my goodness, Black Wall Street. In the heartland of America, there once was a black community paradise, more than 600 businesses strong. Among these were 21 churches, 30 restaurants, 41 grocery stores, libraries, schools, law offices, a hospital, a bank, a post office, 6 privately owned airplanes, a bus system, and 2 movie theaters, not to mention 4 chili parlors, all within a 36-block radius. Does this sound like paradise? Hey, it's not a fantasy. This was the year 1921 in Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, also known as Black Wall Street. Oh my goodness. Boy, do I have some news and information and guests for you this evening. Hey, my show is the new Underground Railroad. Next stop is your neighborhood. All aboard to freedom and freedom land. But before we meet my featured call-in guests, a little bit of history that give you some context so we can connect the dots here. The date, it's February the 8th, and it's 1898. Now, on this date in 1898, the Grandfather Clause, I'm sure you never heard of this. The Grandfather Clause was enacted for voting purposes. You see, the Grandfather Clause was a legal or constitutional mechanism passed by 7 southern states during Reconstruction to deny suffrage to black Americans. It meant that those who had enjoyed the right to vote prior to 1867 or their lineal descendants would be exempt from educational, property, or tax requirements for voting. As a result, even if they met all the requirements, they were not allowed to vote. Because the former slaves who were granted their right until the adoption of the 15th Amendment in 1870, these clauses worked effectively to exclude blacks from voting and assured the vote of many impoverished and illiterate whites. In 1915, the Supreme Court declared the Grandfather Clause unconstitutional because it violated equal voting rights guaranteed by the 15th Amendment. Now, I know you're asking, how does that fit in? Okay, it fits in very well because to understand the success 50 years after the Civil War of a place called Greenwood, Oklahoma, the richest black town in America, destroyed by race and racism, June the 1st, 1921. White folks went rioting, destroyed the entire black community. We're going to talk about that today because this is Black History Month, but you know for me Black History Month is 365 every day. But we're going to expose some truths, meet some people. So, before we get to meet those featured call-in guests, because I got a couple of my cast members on the line right now. We can bring them in. I'll talk to them in a second. But I want you to hear the opening number to this show, Black Wall Street. Listen to these lyrics. Say, have you heard the story of a little colored town way down in Indian Nation on a lovely sloping ground with as pretty little houses as you ever chance to see, with nothing but colored folks a-standing in the streets. Oh, it's a pretty town, and the Negroes own it too, with not a single white man there to tell them what to do. In Greenwood, in Greenwood, in Greenwood. Now, imagine that, 1921, right after the Civil War, a town so rich in wealth, the youngest 9-year-old black girl was a millionaire. I know y'all can't believe that. In America? Well, it certainly was. Greenwood, Oklahoma. So, let's talk about it. Let's welcome my guests. Let's see who's on the line with me right now. Good evening. We got area code 305. Welcome to the BCS
that's
experience.
Me, Byron Keith.
Keith Dames, you've been on my show before. You're the guy who does Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the singer.
How are you?
Well, I'm great, and welcome to the BCS experience again. Now, Keith, you have been in this show for the last 2 years. What character are you playing this year?
This year I'm playing Pegleg.
Pegleg. Okay, and last year you were?
Uncle Bright Blue Sky Rinsed by the Rain.
Uncle Bright Blue Sky Rinsed by the Rain. Now that's very important because you see the area for which we call Greenwood, settled by Native American Indians, were marched all the way from North Carolina, South Carolina, in what is known as the Trail of Tears, and given their land in Oklahoma. Can you imagine? I mean, they weren't in a convertible station wagon. We're talking about walking from North Carolina all the way to Oklahoma on a reservation that ultimately had oil. All right, we got another caller. Let's bring another one of those cast members in. I'm featuring the cast members from Black Wall Street that's opening this week at the Joseph P. Kennedy Center in Harlem, New York City. That's right. 15th and the 16th, 22nd and the 23rd of February. I mean, this show is powerful. Good evening. I have area code 202, and who might you be? Welcome to the BCS experience.
Thank you for having me. This is Adiaga Faiza. Good evening.
Adiaga. Oh, my goodness. Now, Adiaga is going, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you all a sneak preview. If everything works out, she's going to have a new show on the GoPro Radio Network. So I'm giving y'all a scoop. A scoop heads up. All right.
Yes,
now, Adiaga,
yes.
you play a significant part in this production. What role do you play, Adiaga?
Well, everybody is significant in telling this story, but my role is Molly Bowling. She is the wife to a very important man in town,
Yes.
who was a realtor in the town of Tulsa,
Yes.
in Greenwood.
Yes.
And the town, well, you don't want to get, well, For
You
those
give
who
the
know
story.
the story, for those
You
who
can tell
don't,
it.
you know
Yes, go
that
ahead.
there's a major crossroads that the town comes to
Yes.
as a result of the town being obliterated. And how long did it take? A day? Was it a day that it was obliterated?
12
Yeah,
hours.
12 hours.
12
In less
hours.
than 12 hours,
That's
this
right.
bustling town was obliterated. So, Molly definitely goes on a journey, her and her family,
Yes.
but you'll see that everyone is impacted.
And so far we've done this production. Now this is the second year for this production that is being presented and produced by the Shades
Actually,
of
the
Truth.
third year,
Third year, that's right, because we did it, started it back in right before
2012.
the hurricane hit, and we had to move the dates
Right.
of our show, which was quite interesting. But it's being produced by Shades of Truth Theater Company, and they do historical dramas in conjunction with Vosa Rivers, who is the associate producer, and we're fabulously directed this year. This production this year is directed by Patricia Floyd, and we have a marvelous cast. Some who have come back from the last year, but we have pretty much a brand new cast this year. But the story is what still is significant, and we've kind of engaged this on the January the 18th. We did this production at the African American Museum in Hempstead, Long Island, and it wasn't on a stage, but it was a concert performance, like a staged reading without scripts. But we had costumes, and every character did the entire piece. And then, of course, last week at the Queensboro Library, we did the performance, snippets of it, 30 minutes, and then followed that by a 2-hour documentary, which we'll talk about later. But Adiaga and Keith, tell us, what was that like doing that show? Because, I mean, we've experienced something very magical with this show. So you want to talk to me about that?
Well, it has been a enlightening spiritual journey for me.
Okay.
This is my second character I'm playing in the show, and each time I do the show, I'm learning more and more about the actual history of the incident.
Yes.
And I continually connect the dots and learn more.
Absolutely.
And for me, just being a part of this process, what is significant for me and the theme for me has been, respect and honor and learn about your ancestors.
Amen.
You have to be able, especially as a African American community, Black community, we need to continue the torch of passing things down. That is our position, passing things down, whether it be traditions, culture, knowledge, history. We have to pass it down. If we do not tell these stories, if we do not support the institutions and the cultural institutions that tell these stories, our history will be lost. And it's important for us in this generation, especially in this generation, to be invested in the telling of these stories. Support Black theater.
Yes.
Because that's the bottom line. Support
But you know what
Black theater. There are not too many institutions that are telling
our
story.
That's correct. Now, you know what I really found quite interesting is that this year, the Academy Awards is honoring the only show that's being honored in the entire nominations, that is going to be the one show that's going to be remembered by, I don't care who wins what award, but the single show itself, 12 Years a Slave, is the only story that's about something true. In the United States, everybody else, every other story is about some kind of perversion, Wall Street perverted, the perversions of another what you call scam story, But think about the shows this year: 12 Years a Slave, Fruitville Station, The Butler, 42, Mandela, all about true stories of our stories, okay? And
Yes.
I find that incredible because here we are doing this wonderful production of Black Wall Street, another true story. Something that Hosea Williams told me, he and his daughter. Now, Hosea, if you don't know who he is, folks, was one of Martin Luther King's most trusted associates that worked with him. He was kind of like the John the Baptist of the group. He'd go in and tear up a town before Martin and Ralph Abernathy and Andrew Young came in. But he told me and his daughter, he says, I don't know why y'all do theater about nothing. You doing shows that ain't got nothing to do about anything that ain't right, ain't real. But he said, you just take one story from the civil rights movement, and I guarantee you'll have a hit. Well, we've got to come back and talk about this some more, and hopefully some more of the cast members will call in as you all are assembling at the rehearsal site for this week's show. But you're listening, folks. You're listening to the BCS experience on the GoPro Radio Network. Don't go away. We will be right back.
The views and opinions expressed on GoPro Radio Network shows are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. or its affiliates. These broadcasts are provided on the understanding that they do not constitute professional advice or services. Individuals who speak in these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions. GoPro Radio Networks and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in these broadcasts. You may not edit, modify, or redistribute these broadcasts in any way without the express permission of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. GoPro Radio Networks assumes no liability for any of your activities in connection with these broadcasts or for your use of these broadcasts in connection with your website, computer, or playing device.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, we're back. I'm BCS, the Byron C. Saunders version of BCS. And you're listening to the BCS experience on the GoPro Radio Network. And today we're featuring cast members from the great hit production opening this week, Black Wall Street. It's being produced by Shades of Truth Theater and Vosa Rivers New Heritage Theater Group, presenting Celeste Bedford Walker's powerful new play about the true story of Greenwood, Oklahoma, Tulsa, suburbs, 1921, the richest black community in America. Directed by Pat Floyd, starring, and two of my cast members are on the phone with us, Keith Dames, who's playing Peg Leg, and Adiaga Faiza playing Molly. It's an incredible character whose family, oil rich. Folks, you can't even imagine how rich these people were. They had so much money that they had white folks would come to Greenwood from Tulsa to borrow money from the black people. Now, when was the last time you ever heard of anything like that? Okay, we talking in America? Come on now. All right, and it's not just play money. We're talking real. Okay, they had their own airplanes before TWA and American Airlines. We had our own airplanes flying folks from one locale to the next. Okay. And this is what has been destroyed, and this is the history that's not being taught in our country. And so we really do have to get back to the roots and the truth of our history. Now, I'm gonna give you a piece of history because I want to come back and talk about this, but people have to understand that this story has been hidden intentionally by America's historians. And if it weren't for the efforts of those who survived the massacre, that this story may never have been told to anyone. But listen to this. The date, it's August the 12th, 1921, just a few short months after the riots destroyed Greenwood, Oklahoma. And on this date in 1921, Lockard